I'll start the interview anyway. So I'm here today to talk about your new album, She's Automatic, which is due out, is it next Friday, via Deco Records. So what can you tell me about the album and what fans can expect to hear from it?
Ron?
Go ahead, Tony. It's your baby.
It's just a good old romp of kind of a rock and roll. A lot of it is based on a lot of roots, a lot of blues music, just everything that we've kind of always been into. We just kind of threw it all together and kind of came up with this sound. You know, it is kind of a, you know, it's a retro sound. It's vintage sounding. The instruments we played on, and the song's probably reminiscent of a different era, but we are kind of from a different era, so we can't change that.
We worship a different era.
You're not the only one. I know I'm in my 30s, but I think I prefer the older music to the new stuff at the moment.
There you go. Yeah, it's a really good, gritty, swampy, soulful, honest. You know, sonically, Tony writes great songs and paints a great story lyrically. So for me, singing this stuff was really great because everything made sense. Everything was laid out and was real easy to try to tell his stories and express his emotions, which, you know, he does a great job lyrically painting those pictures. So that made my job really easy. And then singing on top of guys that really understand about a great groove and, you know, just that honest, you know, soul, trying to make the listener feel something through what you feel when you play the music.
Yeah.
And, you know, knowing these guys for years and years. So, you know, getting into a room with them to make music was really easy to do.
That's what I was going to say. We go back a long time. All of us, you knew of each other ages ago, and we're friends, and we all kind of came up in the same scene, pretty much into the same kind of music. So it really makes it the whole project really easily. You know, you could get things done fast and well when you got a bunch of like-minded guys in a room. You know.
Yeah, we've all kind of come from the same place where, you know, we wish we were a part of music scenes that were before our time. And everything we've ever done is to pay tribute to the people that kind of came before us. Their honesty, their soul, their you know, just their great ability to move people with music. And that's so inspiring. And we threw all these things into the stew with these great songs. So it was really easy to quickly come to an interpretation taking all these kind of great musical factors into play. So it was really just a lot of fun. And then we had this guy, Bruce Whitkin, who's produced the record, who's a buddy, as well as comes from the same sort of school. Everything was recorded, you know, with the great combination of analog and digital, which a lot of people rely too much on digital. So it was a great experience. It was really quick. It was really fun. And, yeah, so we're excited to put the record out and let people hear, you know, all this stuff. It's kind of a really universal record. If you're into rock, you're into blues, you're into country, you're into, you know, R&B, it's all in there. So, and the funny thing is all of us for years have kind of, you know, scratched our heads because all the music that is contemporary, for me, all the good music that's contemporary, it was all based on that kind of stuff. You know, all the rock bands are all kind of emulating what they listened to in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. And so that's all we're kind of doing. It's just a big stew. We're not trying to break any new ground here, that's for sure. You know.
So it's kind of like you're going back to your roots then, so to speak.
Oh, totally.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Exactly.
And appreciating the freedom to do so. You know, there's such a big explosion now going on in blues and Americana and roots and you know, all that kind of stuff that we just thought, you know, hey man, we can do this stuff just as good as any of these guys, you know, so we tried to do it.
I think when you get older, you have the freedom to kind of just say the hell with it and just do whatever you want to do. And you don't try and keep up with any times or things that are changing around you. You just kind of, you do what you do, and you enjoy it a lot more. And that was kind of our approach, just do what we feel here.
So there was no pressure when you went into the studio to record this album?
Nah, that's the best feeling ever.
You know, that's the good thing about the music business being in the toilet, you know, no major labels or anything. You know, you have to learn how to be self-sufficient and self-monitored and self-guided. And we've all done this for a long time. So it was real easy for us to do that. We know how to make a record, you know, and, you know, we know what makes a great song. We don't need some guy, you know, sticking his 2 cents in from some business entity. You know, we don't need that. So there's a freedom in the destruction, you know.
So that I was going to say, with the writing process, did you feel, is that what you felt when you would go in the studio and you're writing for this particular album? That you felt
well, these are all Tony's babies. Tony is the writer of the band.
Well, you know, on this batch of songs, I had a few stirring for a while in my head. I brought back 1 or 2 from the old days that I never properly recorded, and I wrote a batch of new ones. So over the pandemic, it gave me something to do and not lose my mind. So that's how these songs came about. The pandemic songs. So if they're depressing, that's why.
I just listened to it myself, and I didn't think a lot of it was depressing. It's like what you were saying. It felt new, felt raw, felt fresh. It felt like a return to sort of old, like you said, blues, swamp-y kind of country stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's, you know, listen, it's for me, it's great. This is like one of the first projects I've ever done where it's not my melodies and my lyrics. Everything I have done before has been, you know, and it was so nice to have that pressure off me, to just have somebody bring me a batch of songs that I related to every word, every melody. And it was great because it's, you know, I just get to interpret stuff, and I don't have any of that self-doubt because they're my babies, you know what I mean? So he brought me these songs, and he, you know, played me the melodies and showed me the lyrics, and I'm like, oh man, this is going to be a lot of fun. So for me, I like the fact that he just writes them and brings them to me, and I can raise his children rather than, you know.
Well, I also love having the way Ron interpreted them, and the whole band, really. That's the big surprise. You know, you bring songs in, and it could go either way. A band could really butcher the hell out of them, you know, because they just don't get where you're coming from. But like I said, since we go back a ways, you don't even have to talk about it. These guys, you know, Ron and the band just knew, they knew what to do. You know, I don't have to tell them anything.
Yeah, the first time we got together, we got over in Bruce's studio where we wound up recording, and we picked like 3 or 4 of the batch of songs that Tony had. And I got to tell you, man, within 15, 20 minutes, we were all looking at each other going, man, this is great. This is fun. This is, you know, it just felt really so comfortable and so fun and exciting. And it gave us everything that we love about the music that we grew up on. And we all looked at each other wondering if we were delusional or crazy. But we were like, man, this is great, you know. And it just took off from there. It just was a really quick and very organic, natural process. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think it comes across, comes across in the record that you sound like you're having fun, and you yourself sound like you're kind of free, and you're more open with your vocals and all that.
Yeah, it was a very comfortable process. It was a very quick process too. There's very little overdubs. You know, we wanted to kind of make, you know, records came, like once they hit the 80s, they became these anal, overly thought about, overly, you know, produced kind of performances that took the personality out of tracks.
Right.
And so there's stuff that, you know, that way of recording a record where you let the natural personality of the band come through, where you don't seek performance for perfection, which takes away all of those little personality traits and sensations, where certain parts are a little ahead of the beat, certain parts. That's all. You listen to like the Rolling Stones, Time Is on My Side, and the tambourine and the tempo, it's all over the place.
Yeah.
Nobody sat there thinking, that tambourine's flamming with the snare drum. Listeners don't think about those things. Only producers and engineers did. So we didn't let that get in the way of us, this record.
So was that behind your decision to sign with, is it Deco Records then?
Yeah, it was, we Little Caesar, me and Lauren and Mark's other band have a relationship with them, and it's a really comfortable, good relationship. And I called Tony, I said, let me send them the record and see, and they were really excited about it. So we were like, okay, great. We already have this working relationship, really good people. They really just they listen and they get it, or they don't get it, and they did. So we were like, great, let's work with them.
So
yeah, we're psyched to have it come out in Europe. I mean, this is I guess we're about a week away from it, but it's pretty exciting, I got to say.
A week or two away, yeah.
Yeah, I got admit, from what I've heard of it, I'm looking forward to it myself. So,
now we just got to get folks like you to help us get other people to find out about it.
Yeah, write a nice review. That's what you want me to do.
That's the tough part, with the internet, to try to, it's great to not have record company guys in your way, but it's also tough to get your music heard above the 72 million other people putting out music, either from their living room or, wherever they're putting it out from these days. So, it's a blessing and a curse.
So do you find it, that is one of my questions down the line to you, Ron, was, so are you still with Little Caesar? So do you see the approach to the Cruzados, is that different to your approach with Little Caesar then?
No, the approach isn't different. What's great about it is, Little Caesar was always this hard rock kind of band that we pay tribute more to harder types of music. But the harder types of music we pay tribute to in that band come from the same roots as Cruzados, original soul, original blues, but it's a totally different take on it. And what's great is having Tony bring us the songs, and the songs are they immediately paint a picture of where they should go sonically. That's completely far afield from Little Caesar stuff. So it's great because we get to just, partake in a different realm of music that we get to in Little Caesar, but the reverence and the love for all of these more roots-based types of music is there in Cruzados. So it's a completely different realm.
So it's an opportunity for you to try different kind of music then. So,
it's like they're both hot chicks, but they're totally different hot chicks. And nobody in one marriage minds us stepping out on the other. So it's really the musical hall pass that's fabulous.
So it's like having an attractive wife, but
yes,
a more attractive mistress, isn't it?
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
So why did you join the Cruzados? I know you probably answered that already. But... Okay.
Well, it all came about because Mark, who had worked with Tony in other projects and other things, called me and Tony that Tony was putting the Cruzados back together, that he wanted to pay tribute to Chalo and Charlie Quintana and Marshall and
two of our members who we lost.
Yeah,
sad to hear that.
Lost over the years. And when I was originally from New York, and I moved to LA in like the early mid 80s, and the Plugs and Cruzados were like one of the hot bands on the scene, and I used to go out and see them. And the original bass player in Little Caesar was tight with Charlie, and knew Tony, and Lauren knew those guys. He used to roadie for them.
Yeah.
Lauren used to roadie for Cruzados and the Plugs, you know. So, you know, we have this long history. And so when Mark called me and said that Tony was wanting to kind of pay tribute to the brand and the sound and the project, I was like, well, does he have a singer yet? And he's like, no, he doesn't. And
it wasn't easy to find the right guy. I got to tell you, it's pretty much impossible to find the right guy.
Yeah. So Mark said, would you mind if I bring your name up? And I'm like, no, please do. So, you know, and then Tony called me. We had a great conversation. We immediately knew what this should be on paper, and what he wanted to do was, I was totally up for it. So then Tony's like, we need like one more guitar player. Would you mind if I called Lauren? Because we have a long history with him. And because Tony has got this incredible history of the people that he's made music with. And I'll just, you know, he'll blush a little bit, but his personality and his musical abilities and his talents are just so great that anybody he plays with, they just love what he does, because he's just the quintessential bass player. He seamlessly falls in. He seamlessly locks in the pocket. Everything he plays, every part he chooses is perfect and appropriate. He just has this great base of music, and he's played with so many great people. So to be,
hey, Ron,
yeah,
Ron, will you manage me?
Yeah. Will you blow me? You know, so
really
all these pictures of Marianne Faithfull and Bob Dylan, and you know, just all of these people that he has this history with. I feel cool just being in a band with. You know,
hey, when you're around as long as we have been, me, Ron, and the guys, shit happens. You come across people, you know, opportunity just comes your way if you hang in there long enough. We're lifers. We don't have other jobs. This is what we do, so we've been doing it forever. So stuff just comes your way if you hang in there long enough, you know.
Yeah, and well, but it also takes, and take it from me, because I come from the 80s metal scene, you know, from the Sunset Strip, where egos are rampant and antics seem to trump playing, you know, in the 80s. I gotta say, I'm not gonna name any names, but none of these guys are gonna get up and jam with Willie Nelson or Bob Dylan, you know what I mean? They're not those kind of players. And so I've always kind of had a bit of this albatross around our neck, because Little Caesar was associated with Poison and Warren, as opposed to Cruzados, which were associated with Bob Dylan and Willie Nelson and Fleetwood Mac. And
trust me, there were a lot of bands in our scene that were quite different from us. Both scenes have their wide range of bands.
Yeah,
some aren't always our favorite. So
no, but
we had that.
So for me to stick my horse on the Cruzados card with all of the people that Tony's played with, who I have this amazing reverence and respect for, that are so wide a field of She's My Cherry Pie, or, you know, whatever was coming out at the time. Yeah. Don't get me wrong, that music is great for what it is, but for me as a lover of soul and blues and roots music, as well as AC/DC and Motorhead, you know, and Sex Pistols and all of that music, this was such a great treat for me to get in and be associated, you know, because we've got these people playing on the record, guys, you know, like Dave Alvin from the Blasters and David Hidalgo from Los Lobos, and you know, the list goes on of people who I just love their music, which is nothing like any of the bands that I was associated with in my career in Little Caesar. So to get to be with people that's played with Springsteen and X and Los Lobos and TSOL that Tony brought, because they're all his musical, they're all his bros and people he's been making music with for years, was, as a musician, is such an incredible treat for me. You know, it's like it widens the you know, the cabinet of tasty treats sonically that I get to, you know, associate with. So it was really great.
So it's a case, sorry. So it's a case of it's leaving something, go back to something that makes you more happy, isn't it? Really, it kind of more defines you as a singer, maybe more as a personality.
Well, it certainly opens up such a wide field for me that is a wider lane than anything that Little Caesar did. Little Caesar came up, you know, where I had to figure out if I wanted to have a career in music, I had to figure out a way to wear my roots on my sleeve, but make it really hard and palatable to listeners that were, you know, this is when Bon Jovi, Poison, you know, Warrant, Winger, LA Guns were on the charts. So I had to try to figure out a way to take my roots and take all the things that make me a lover of music and turn it into something that was palatable. And whether people of that time period and of that genre appreciate what Little Caesar did, we were a little far afield, but we got a record deal, you know, and people saw what we were trying to do.
Hey, that whole scene, all those bands you just mentioned, they were ruling the Sunset Strip. That was the big scene.
And MTV too, you know, you had to go to VH1 if you wanted to hear more roots-based kind of music. If you wanted to listen to, you know, Cruzados,
right?
Any more mainstream rock bands as opposed to heavy metal, glam metal, hair metal that was eating up MTV at the time. All those other bands, Tom Petty, Traveling Wilburys, you know, all of that stuff was all on VH1. It was all rock and roll, but it wasn't hard rock and roll.
Right.
And the difference is the guitar tones and how much reverb was on the drums, but it's all rock and roll. And I always used to scratch my head in the early 80s going, okay, well, I'm in LA. Everybody in this town is either a punk rocker who's not going to go anywhere, or a hard rock heavy metal guy in 1986. So I figured out a way how to get out something that a record company might sign, but at night I was still going out to Raji's and the Roxy and listening to all of these other bands that were more roots, you know, roots-based rock bands other than metal-based or glam metal-based bands. So when Tony came along with this project, man, it was just woohoo, you know. I get to do all this stuff. So
I was going to say about the guests on the album, and what can you tell me about them, and how was he able to get them to agree to come onto the record then?
Well, the tricky part was not really getting them to agree. The hard part was getting them to record it, because we did this during the pandemic. So a couple guys like David Hidalgo and Steve Berlin from Los Lobos, they had to record their parts at home on our tracks. We would send the tracks over to them. Everyone kind of wanted to do it because, like I said, we're all pals from the old days. John Doe from X, same thing. He had to fly his part in. We had a couple. Dave Alvin came in person from the Blasters to the studio, but it was tricky getting everyone to get on the record. But it was mostly due to the COVID situation at the time when we did the album.
And so you and Ron, did you record your parts in the album together? So in these,
we all went for it. We all got in one big room and spread out, and some of us had masks on, some didn't. But that's how we did it. We just cut it live in one big studio.
Yeah. All the main tracks were basically cut live with all of us in the room, and we would just clean up a couple little things here and there. Yeah. And then the guest stars coming in for solos and rhythm parts or company parts, those were kind of all added in once we had the core of the record done.
Melanie came in.
Yeah, Melanie
from the Muffs and Pandora. She played a organ on a track. She showed up in person, and Gia, our backup vocalist, she came in person. And the rest people we would send them a file and they would record on it. You know, trying to get through the time. You know, that's what we had to do.
Yeah, I'm thinking I suppose it sounds more authentic. Do you feel it sounds more authentic when you've got your own studio compared to just having some recorder found and send it to you on your computer.
Oh yeah, because that's all the great records were guys, you know, Stones, Muddy Waters, all these guys would just get in a room and you just keep cutting takes till it felt right, till you felt you had 80–90% of it down.
Yeah.
And you know, this is the kind of music that it's ensemble music. Everybody's performance inspires that micro timing that makes for something in the pocket or up on top of the feel or back behind the feel. And you know, so that period of time where we were like, okay, we're all going to get in a room. We're all going to hope that we don't catch the cooties from each other.
Dreaded lurk.
Fortunately, we didn't. You know,
we had to be in the room and cut live, or the record wouldn't have been anywhere as good as it turned out. We just had to do it that way, you know.
You know, and this was the time when in the pandemic, they said, listen, you got to get your little wolf pack of people, your close people that you could socially connect with. Try to keep it limited, try to keep it small because community transmission and all this stuff.
Yeah,
and we were like, everybody in this band is responsible. Everybody's taking this thing seriously. Everybody, once they leave the studio, is kind of locking down in their houses. You know, if guys in the band can't call each other family, who can? So fortunately, we all got through it without anybody getting the cooties. So
yeah,
I think that's the luckiest out. I think that's the best thing I've got, is not getting the virus out of anything. I suppose at the end of the day, it's probably music is important. Obviously, lives are more important, so it's good not to have got the virus.
yeah,
But it's also good that you've been able to get the record out there. But it says on the I don't know. Sorry about it. It said on the website that was it due out last August. But on the press release, it said it's obviously it's out next Friday. Was that always the case, or?
No, we threw it out on our website, thinking that, you know, we were just so excited to get it out, and the pandemic and everything. We figured, okay, well, we'll throw it up, and then we realized, well, you know, it's not like we've kept up the band brand on Facebook. We're just building all our followers and everything, and it was like, and then with the supply chain nonsense and shipping going through the roof, we just decided to call up Deco and was like, let's put this thing out properly. We can't just sell it out of the back of a truck on the internet, you know, and have it expect to get over to Europe and the UK, especially because, you know, we're going to go tour over there, and we're like, we have to,
yeah,
you know, this isn't like an Etsy thing where we're selling, you know, handmade doilies on,
actually,
on eBay.
You could try.
Right.
Yeah. So we're now doing a proper release. So
I was going to say, so do you see, like Tony, do you see much difference with the band that you started in 1983 to the band that you've now got on the on the releasing this new album?
Well, the guys are as wild as my old band, and their history is certainly as wild. And no, they're just a bunch of rock and roll guys, just kind of like my guys were. And we were all best friends back in the day, the Cruzados, and that's how it kind of feels today. You know, the same way. And that's the top thing. If you're not like a family and you don't get along in a band, it's like there's no point in doing it. And right now, that's how we feel when we're together. We're having a ball playing. So it's
being in a band's like being in a motorcycle club. You know, it's like you got a bunch of dysfunctional dudes that have each other's backs, and we try to sit down and counsel each other. You know, I don't know, dude, that's pretty wild.
Yeah, hopefully not like Sons of Anarchy.
And then when you hear it from a guy that you used to watch like run down Sunset Strip naked, drunk, who's had that experience, we've learned to listen to each other. Trust each other's experience. That you don't want to do that. It's like he knows what he's talking about. So
that is a lot of trust, a lot of chemistry.
Yeah, you have to
hope with that. So do you see a difference with the, when the band started off now compared to, sorry. So do you see the difference between when the Cruzados start off now, compared to like the music industry and the way it's turning out? So I know, like with the Cruzados, I was reading about how they had 2 successful albums. You appeared on MTV, and you appeared in some films. And I've mentioned that already with Roadhouse and From Dusk Till Dawn.
Yeah, so, it's another time. I mean, as Ron said, it's a 360 from the music business that we grew up in. It's independent. At the same time, it's freeing. You might not have the big bucks to back you, and for certain things, but I've always come from a do-it-yourself thing, from going back to the plugs. You kind of got to make it happen. You could have a record company behind you and all the money in the world, but if you got a crappy band and no direction, none of it means anything. So you just do your best, and that's what we're doing. It's a whole different animal than it used to be in the old days. So, but the band kind of remains the same. It's still a rock and roll band with a lot of heart and everything. So we're just going to plow ahead in these times.
I suppose that's the most. Sorry.
One of the nice things, well, the nicest thing about not having, like Tony said, not having the money and the power behind you, but all those people always needed to stick their thumbprint on everything that a band did, from producers to A&R guys to marketing guys. And I don't know one person that lived through that ever walked out and said, oh man, I have this theory. It's called the Benjamin Franklin theory. Benjamin Franklin didn't invent electricity. He just discovered it. And when you get signed to these labels, they all of a sudden think they invented you. They just discovered you. And they never let the band do what the band did that made them interested in the first place. And everything always wound up getting diluted. And everybody I know was like, yeah, the production on our first record was, that was this guy at the time, and he didn't let us this, that. And fortunately now, sink or swim, at least we get the reward on the spiritual aspect that everything we do now is us.
Yeah.
It's our input, our desires, our sensibilities now.
Yeah, back in the day, it got to the point when we were on Arista where, record company president Clive Davis, he'd call us in and he'd say, guys, I'd like to, let's put a bridge in this song. Can we write a bridge here? I mean, it was getting a bit much where he was telling us where to write bridges in our songs and things like that. And, we like to handle the music and let him handle the business, but, I respected the guy, but it was a bit much having the record companies stamp on everything that you had to do,
But here's the interesting thing. Clive Davis is a guy who spray paints his head. He wakes up every morning and he decides he's going to paint shoe polish on his head.
Well,
Why
this is
would I
good.
trust somebody's input who sits and looks in the mirror and thinks that this is the best way to go? When he tells me it needs a bridge, I'm like, you need a toupee. It's like, but I can't say that to you. So how do you get to say to me that you get to put a bridge?
I didn't say that.
See, but this is the nice thing about not being on a label anymore. You can say these things.
Right.
Because he's not paying attention,
Yeah.
So there'll be no phone call to the manager tomorrow.
No, this won't be on the internet, so it's okay.
Yeah.
Ouch.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I was going to talk to you about the new single, She's Automatic. So it's quite an interesting video. So what can you tell me about the video, what the track means, and how it contributes?
We redid the video.
Yeah. Is it just bits of films then that you've added in the video?
Tony, tell the story about how.
Well, the video was, in the end, it was, you tell the story. Tell who originally cut it on.
Well, Tony is a big fan of old vintage pop art and films and that visual sensibility.
Film noir and stuff like that.
Yeah, film noir and all that kitschy 50s, cheap budget, girls with, giant torpedo tits and all this kind of great stuff in bikinis. And, crazy cars and all that stuff. And he has a buddy that does film trailers, and
Josh Dragata.
Yeah, and he put this little teaser together, and we're like, we got to expand upon this. This is great. So we went, you know, we hired a great video director, this guy Jake Bradbury, who Little Caesar had worked with. But the idea was we had this sort of younger, pretty girl that was going to be the psycho behind the lyrical story. And we shot the video, and we had a whole ton of footage of her just kind of going batshit crazy, screaming in our face while we were playing. And after we finished it, it was really a little over the top, and it just didn't really work. So we pulled all that footage out. We just decided to go back to that original footage with us performing and having all that quick intercut sort of 50s horror psycho, you know, hot rod kind of movie feel to it. So,
as far as the song, I originally envisioned the song when I wrote She's Automatic, the she in it, I envisioned her as not so much the psycho girl that they made her in the video to be, this crazy off the top, out of control psycho girl, but I thought she was a powerful woman. She was automatic. I mean, mind you, she was a killer, but I didn't see her as the underdog. I saw her as this forceful woman that makes you get on your knees and beg for mercy. So when I did see the clip,
crazy and hot, you know, but in a good way. You know,
there's a lot of them like that.
Yeah, you know, like early in the relationship, you know, not later when she's burning your clothes.
Yeah.
Exciting, fun, empowered, kind of quick triggered. You gotta love that because she stands up to you. Exciting, kind of empowered woman, not psychotic.
That was a theme originally when I was writing the lyrics. That's what I envisioned.
And then it wound up coming across like she was just batshit crazy. And it didn't really transpose that sort of, you know.
But it's nobody's fault really. It's probably my fault because when you bring a few different people in, you don't really. It's hard to relay what exactly you're going for unless you really sit down with every single person. And I'm probably guilty of using a bunch of different people in that video to make it work, but.
It's also that we've been really lucky that everything just fell in place organically, and everybody from the musical side to the production side, every one of their visions wound up coming across. And in the video, it came close, but it just didn't work. And fortunately, we could, you know, shift left and shift right around it. You know, not. A guy who bats 90% in baseball is still a Hall of Famer, you know. So that's kind of, we just made this shift of gears because it didn't quite come across. So.
Sorry, I'm just looking at my. So I was going to say, like you've mentioned already, Tony, that you've performed with quite a lot of people. So Warren Zevon, Red Hot Chili Peppers, Fleetwood Mac. What can you tell me about that experience then?
Well, it's the best part when you're young. There's no better experience than touring with all the big bands. You know, at the time, Fleetwood Mac and Joe Walsh and whoever was hot at the time, we would get to open for them. And as Ron knows, Ron did that opening for big bands as well. It's like the best education when you're 22 years old. To go play your own set and then go sit out in the stadium and like sit there and watch Fleetwood Mac for 3 months straight, do what they do, you know, and I watch the rhythm section and it's a great experience. There's nothing like it, man. You know, I wouldn't trade that for anything. That's the best part. You know, you get to see a lot of your idols close up and how they really make it happen. And I learned a lot just from all that watching the opening bands, you know, it's the most fun part for me when I was young, getting to meet people and seeing what they're about and how they do it.
It sounds like a dream. I think it must be a dream for many young musicians to be put in that position. So.
Yeah, I think it is. I mean, there's nothing like it. You know, it's not something you're not going to go learn in a class or reading a book. You just got to be on the road and see how people make it happen, you know?
There's no better way of learning than being
Yeah.
in person, is there? So is there anybody that you'd like to, but I suppose question to both of you, is there any people that you still would like to tour with them?
Yeah, the
You
Rolling
haven't toured with.
Stones.
Yeah.
The Rolling Stones got
Yeah, Vintage Trouble got to play with them and AC/DC. That's one of the reasons why I love them. You know, it's like, what band can play with both of those bands and still come across and have their music be appropriate? You know, oh God, there's so many people. For me, I just, you know, again, as Tony was saying, to play with your musical, because we're fans of music before we're maker. Well, I'm a fan of music before I'm a maker of music. You know, this comes from the love of music, and what I feel when I listen to music inspires me to make music. So as somebody, you know, who has a deep respect for all of these guys, you know, all these other bands like Rolling Stones or AC/DC or, you know, George Thorogood or, you know, the Traveling Wilburys, you know, obviously prior to Tom Petty's death, but, you know, all of these bands that just have these great players, you know, who have all these great stories, you know, to just be in their presence and to hear these stories that they tell when they were cutting their teeth back in the late 60s, early 70s, late 70s. As a fan of music, you just sit there with these wide eyes and your ears open, and you're just like, man, that's so cool, you know? And so it would be great to, you know, support a tour like that. I hope we can make this record get enough attention to the help of people like you that maybe we'll get considered. They still get to do that, you know?
I was going to say, I think one of my final questions was, do you guys plan to go and tour the album this year?
Yeah, we'll be going over to Europe right at the end of March into the third week of April. And then we're hoping that attention will start to build some interest over in the UK. So we can go through Scotland and Wales and England, up to Ireland. That'd be great.
Yeah.
You know, the thing is that people in Europe and the UK, you know, the British invasion, they get blues and roots-based music and have more reverence than the people who started it here in America.
Yeah, we love it.
It's true.
Yeah.
You know, there's bigger blues festivals and there's more people connect the dots over there. And so I think that this band would do really well over there.
I think so too.
Yeah, so we're hoping that we can generate enough interest so that we can get out and get it, you know, either a support situation, but even there's nothing like playing in a good, stinky, beer-filled club. This is the music that goes over really well in pubs and clubs, you know, so.
Yeah, people
We're not afraid to play. We're not afraid to play a stinky pub.
No.
We're ready.
Yeah, we're still humping our own gear. There's no crew guys, you know. That's why it's good. This music takes small amps. You know, it's great.
Well, there's some good pubs around here that do a lot of that kind of music. So you never know. You might end up in there.
See, we're forward thinking.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Give us a reason to go to the pub.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Let's make a record so we can
Cheap
do a
beer.
pub tour. Right, exactly.
Yeah, good English ale. That's what you need.
Yeah.
Help swing it. Yeah, I suppose the last question is what is next for the Cruzados? But I think you might have just answered that question.
Well, we're going to try to shoot another video. We're going to release another single. We have some live versions of She's Automatic, and the next single is going to be 9 Million Tears. And then the third single will be Sad Sadie, which we already have a video for. And just pray that this pandemic ends so that we can go out and play this music. You know, for me, I've always made music as an excuse to go play music. I'm not a big album guy, you know. Albums are a means to an end. You capture a couple of moments in time but then you get to go out every night and create the magic anew with a new audience, with new energy, and a new moment to translate this music. Because this is the kind of music that every night it takes on a slightly different interpretation because of the audience you're with. And so we're just praying this thing ends soon. Hopefully this thing is going to burn out now that we have a milder, faster spreading variant. And there's a lot of people that are starving right now in this business. You know, all the behind the scenes, all the pubs, all the live music venues, all the crew guys, all the, you know, drivers, all the merch people. It's all, you know, this is on the edge of falling apart. And it was an industry that wasn't that healthy to begin with. So for all those people and for the blessing of getting to go out and make music, we just hope that that ends quickly. We can get this on track, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I really do hope it works out for both of you anyway, and obviously for the Cruzados. I listened to the album, I enjoyed it. So I do hope that it kind of catches on over in the UK and throughout the world for you as well.
Thank you.
It's good to see you over here anyway. So.
With the help,
hope to see you.
Yeah, with the help of folks like you, we really appreciate you giving us a spotlight. Thank you.
You're welcome. So I'm going to wrap up the interview, but is there anything else you'd like to say before I go?
No, I've had the usual diarrhea of the mouth. So. Tony, anything?
Just if people want to know what we're up to, where we're going.
Yeah, go to Facebook. We need to build up our Facebook followers.
Yeah, look up Cruzados on Facebook and come say hi to us. We respond and answer questions daily to a lot of people all over the world. So it's fun getting messages.
Yeah.
I'll try and get some people to.
Tell them to come over.
Yeah.
And
Thank you.
Try and get them to listen to the record as well.
Great.
Thanks. Thank you very much for taking time.
Appreciate your time.
Anyway.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. See you later. Bye.
Take care.
Bye-bye.